Hello guys, Nizzy here. With the launch of Baldur's Gate 3 fast approaching and with the slew of classes that it ships with at launch, we realized that it can be a bit confusing and overwhelming to pick and decide which class to play on, especially on your first playthrough. Now, this series, which I call Which Class Fits My Playstyle, attempts to address that issue. In this video, we will be talking about tanks specifically, but only the classes. The subclasses will hopefully have its own video in the future. Now there's a lot to unpack, so without further delay, let's get to it. Before we continue, please consider thanking that like and subscribe button so that you can join me in protecting the front lines. Now let's get back to the video. So let's start off with the fighter, the most iconic and recognizable of the D&D classes. I believe in the very first edition, the very first adventure that was released by Gary Gygax way back in basic D&D, he had the player take on the role of a fighter. Now, what would make this class fit your playstyle? This would fit your playstyle if first, you want a very simple game, and second, if you're a new to D&D and have not played D&D before. The fighter has very basic mechanics, which is a good starting point to learn the game itself and then to learn how to play classes in the game. This would serve as a good jumping point for you to learn other classes in your succeeding playthroughs. Also, the fighter has a very high HP, which is useful because in an RPG game, the first thing you need to do is to survive. So, if you're new to D&D, especially if you're new to RPGs, this is the class to pick. Next up is the Barbarian. Still, a relatively easy class to play. This is good for people who have a game or two under their belt, or even for complete beginners who are up to a little bit of challenge. The Barbarian has the highest HP in the game, which means players who pick the Barbarian can focus on offensive style of play. This is good if you're still learning the nuances of the basic game. So the first interesting thing to learn is to attack, right? This is good for that. Secondly, because of the Barbarian not wearing armor, you have less focus on equipment management, and you can focus more on learning how to play the game itself, and learn how to play your class. Thirdly, as I alluded to, the Barbarian introduces some abilities that are still simple enough to be played by a relative beginner, but is interesting enough to break the monotony of just attacking, defending, and moving. So this is still a good class for beginners who want a little bit of variety. Next up is the Paladin, and boy do I have a lot to say about this one. The Paladin is my favorite class in all of RPG games. I always take it if it's available. Now, first off, the Paladin is as tough as a fighter. It can wear the same equipment as a fighter. It may not have as much hit points as the Barbarian, but it has buff and healing abilities that it can cast on itself or others. Thus, it has the most staying power in all of the tank classes. You can say it's the tankiest. So, if you want a little bit of support sprinkled in your tanking play, the Paladin is for you. Also, if you want to play a game with deep, immersive role-playing experiences, this class is also for you. The Paladin fits the hero archetype the most in all of D&D classes. But you're not stuck with just being a little goody two-shoe. The Paladin has evil subclasses, those who have broken their oaths. But so you can play as an evil character and still be a Paladin. Both good and evil versions will give that same immersive role-playing experience. This class is not for beginners, but this is where it gets really interesting. Lastly, we have the Ranger. I have a confession. I used to ignore this class, was completely uninterested in it, because I couldn't figure out what its main role was. That is, until I got to know Drizzt. Drizzt is a male drow ranger in the Forgotten Realm setting, and he is a total badass. You should check out his books, I recommend. Anyway, going back, as I alluded to earlier, the Ranger is kind of a jack of all trades when it comes to the tank classes. He can do a bit of everything. It can do DPS, support, of course tanking. It even has some roguelike abilities, but its main specialty is high single target damage. I know. It's counterintuitive. I thought we were talking about tanks here. But it is what it is. The Ranger is designed to deliver high single target damage. Also, it is the best class in the tank classes to give you an introduction to the mechanics of spellcasting. Yeah, the Barbarian and the Paladin has some spell-like abilities, but the Ranger is the only tank class that has proper spells. So, it's great if you plan to take on a spellcasting in your next playthrough to get introduced by using the Ranger. So, if you don't mind a little bit of challenge and some nuanced play, yeah, given it's not recommended for newbies, but if you're up to it, the Ranger is for you. So that's it for the tank classes. If you guys are still here, thank you for dropping by. And as always, see you guys on the next one.